It's a pleasure to see so many of you here today in our Bark Sanctuary. 4 years ago, I lost my remaining grandparent. 2 years ago, my wife Lisa lost her 97-year-old grandmother. And her loss brought a major chapter of our lives to an end. We no longer have any grandparents left. And not a day goes by in which we don't feel that void. And losing my last grandparent reminded me about the times when my parents would pile my two brothers and me in their old station wagon. We would then make that 3-hour drive from Dallas to their small town of Duncan, Oklahoma. Of course, at that time, there were no smartphones or tablets to stream movies to help us pass the time. Instead, we had to interact with each other. And some of that time was spent fighting, a lot of that time, yelling at each other for more room, for more snacks, for more quiet, screaming at the one who got to sit in the very back, on that seat that faced backwards, where you can make faces at the cars behind you. I can't believe they made cars like that at one point. How dangerous was that? But a lot of that family time in the car was spent playing I Spy and 20 Questions. And those games were amazing. And time was also spent talking with each other. My parents shared stories that will stay with me forever. And as soon as I walked in my grandparents' home, the smell of homegrown fruit in the kitchen and mothballs in their closets permeated the air. My grandfather would tell us what it was like to fight in the war against the Germans and then come back home and work as an accountant for the same company for 44 years. In the stories he told me of the deep commitment he had for his work, his community, and family helped make me the person I am today. Did your grandparents also share their stories of courage and valor, loyalty and devotion? The stories that help shape the man or the woman you've become. And do they also pinch your cheeks with such pure and unfiltered delight? Thousands of years ago, when the Israelites traveled in the Sinai desert, they marched with their respective tribes. And the all-important Ark of the Covenant, containing the original scrolls of the Torah, was in the middle. And a tradition has it that the tribe of Judah, situated at the eastern edge of the camp, marched backwards when the Israelites traveled eastward to avoid turning their back on the Ark of the Covenant. Imagine the entire tribe of Judah, the tribe in which most of us can trace our roots back today, marching backwards to show their respect for what came before them as they journeyed forward. They found their path to the future by familiarizing themselves with their past. Should we do the same? Can we go forward without reflecting? Can we go forward without understanding? And can we go forward without dealing with where we began? The prayers of our Yeshurun service invite us to bring to mind those who taught us how to live, so we can pledge anew to act in ways that honor their values and to act upon all of our memories to build a greater future for ourselves. That is why Yeshurun has to be part of Yom Kippur. This day is all about renewing ourselves for a better year ahead. And I'm not sure we can do that if we don't take stock of where we came from. Yes, we can start with our precious grandparents. Can we also give thought to our parents, who primarily made us who we are? And whether they are alive or have passed on, as we recite Yeshurun today, let us recall their stories of inspiration, how their sacrifices gave us so much of what we enjoy today. We can reminisce about the family gatherings around the TV, the outings to our favorite restaurants, the fun times out in the yard. With our fathers, we may recall the games of catch or the very uncomfortable man-to-man talks. We remember those special recipes of moms that we wish we had, and if we do have them, we wonder why, when we use them, the food never tastes quite as good. We consider those days when we knew we were making our parents proud, when there was no one else in the world they were thinking of but us. We were on top of the world. We keep in mind what they did for us day in and day out, how often they seemed to be there, their unending and unconditional love. What they did, how they treated us, what words they used and actions they took. It's so much of who we are, for good and for bad. We remember the good times, but should we also recall the not so good times? When we upset them and they disciplined us, we may not have understood why. Perhaps we do now. We may reflect on the times we disappointed our parents and when they disappointed us. There is a lot of love, but there may be some anger. Yes, there may have been actions they took that were not fair. There may be some unresolved wounds. It's been said sometimes looking at our memories is like being caressed and spat on at the same time. When some of you are in my office and we talk about those hurts, I try to remind you, yes, there were times our parents taught us how not to behave. From our mothers and our fathers, there are things we should take, and perhaps things we should not take. Can this too be a blessing to make us better people today? Yes, memories can at times hurt. And can we also honor that pain? A colleague once taught me that when we make peace with what cannot be resolved, that in itself becomes its own resolution, which may allow us to move forward in life. Yeshurun doesn't stop with those we may have lost in the natural order of life. Today is also about those closer to our age, the most difficult of losses. Some of you may also be mourning a sibling. We can bring to mind how our siblings protected us like second parents, and how they also teased us like crazy. We remember our siblings as role models, our best friends. We could share everything and anything with them. We may recall the times they came to defend us and the moments they made us angry. We thought they were doing what they should not do. The competitions, the longing for attention, the unavoidable conflicts. How much of those struggles are still part of us? And how we approach our careers, our goals, our current relationships, our successes, and our failures. Over human history, the most common source of conflict is sibling rivalry. Just look at Genesis. Cain kills Abel. Ishmael is banished from his home because of the way he treats his brother Isaac. Joseph's brothers sell him into slavery. The Torah is the model of family dysfunction. And even twins, Jacob and Esau, could not be more difficult and different. Esau was the hunter, Jacob the academic. Esau is described as ruddy and hairy. Jacob is smooth and gentle. Esau was the apple of his father's eye. Jacob was the favorite child of his mother. And from their birth, the two brothers spent years competing for their parents' attention. They become enemies of one another. But Jacob and Esau eventually make peace. They make peace with each other through years of searching and spiritual growth. They learn to recognize and respect their differences. Noam Sion writes in his book, talking about Genesis, the recognition and respect of differences also hold out hope for reconciliation when brothers and sisters accept their different fates. When each goes off to their own land and his or her own lifestyle, when they realize they don't want to be the other, they simply want to be themselves and no one else, then they could move ahead. Today, some of you also may be mourning a spouse. And we recall the time when we met our Beshert. We reminisce about that moment when we knew that we were in love. We remember how we grew together as one. We built homes and found ways to keep the romance alive. We may have raised children, settled into retirement, and then traveled the world. We think of the moments when they made us better parents, the times they loved us no matter how much we actually deserved it. Or we recall the late nights when we stayed up because they weren't feeling well. And we built memories that will last a lifetime. For many, after losing a spouse, it can be hard to forge ahead. I see it often. And I have found that the words of Yizkor, especially the Kaddish, can help. The mourner's Kaddish is not a prayer about death. Rather, when we are bent low, the Kaddish asks us to stand up and proclaim the potential of a restored world. We end with the eternal words, Oseh Shalom Bimromav. May there be abundant peace from heaven and life for us and for all Israel. When we are at our lowest point, we affirm and proclaim that life could be good again. Mourner's Kaddish is that daily reminder to try to find that spark. It's okay. It's okay to enjoy ourselves again. It's our tradition saying, just as we enjoyed life to the fullest when we were with the one we loved the most, can we sanctify their memory by finding the joy again? The hope of mourning as a Jew and saying Kaddish is that we can. Today, some of you may also be mourning a child, the greatest loss of all. And for those of you who have gone through the most terrible of losses, we think of those times when we held our babies in our arms. We recall the moment they took their first step. We reminisce about how difficult it was the time we had to let them go off on their own. Rose Kennedy once said, when you hold your baby in your arms the first time, you think of all the things you can say and do to influence them for the better. As we recite Yizkor today, we realize that even though their time with us was all too short, let us not forget that we did have influence on those angels who have gone to the heavens above. But still, it's not my place, nor anyone here, to make you feel at peace with the loss of a child. Rather, I ask you to open your hearts to this advice from a woman named Rita Moran. Rita was a woman whose young daughter was killed in a car accident, and I have yet to find anything that says it better. She writes, "Please don't ask me if I'm over it yet. I'll never be over it. Please don't tell me she's in a better place. She isn't with me. Please don't say at least she isn't suffering. I haven't come to terms why she had to suffer at all. And please don't tell me how I feel unless you have lost a child. Please don't ask me if I feel better. Bereavement isn't a condition that clears up. And please don't tell me God never gives us more than we can bear. Please just say you are sorry. Please just say you remember my child if you do. Please just let me talk about my child. Please mention my child's name. Please just let me cry." Yes, her advice isn't about answers. It's not about taking away the pain. Nothing but time can do that. Yet nothing, not even time, can take away the stories or the blessings or the memories. My friends, on this most solemn of days, we bring to mind those we have lost, those we have so loved, those who are no longer here. Today is about remembering the great love we shared. However, as we attempt to go forward, it's not about letting go. It's about holding on. Because Yizkor is there every year to remind us that even though those we lost are not physically here, they are still with us. And as we push ahead in our life's journey, their words of wisdom can still move us. Their advice can still guide us. Their blessings can still inspire us. My colleague, Rabbi Stephen Leder, writes, "Memory is light, illuminating and reminding us of so many things. Reminding each of us who mourn a love both gone and yet still present, still warm and aglow even when skies are gray. If we reminisce, nothing can ever take them away." And I think that's really all those we have lost ask of us, that we carry them gently in our lives as they carried us in theirs, not with crushing sadness, for they do not wish such weight upon us, but with the lightness and warmth, happiness and comfort they brought to us. Mourning as a Jew, observing a Yahrzeit, participating in a Yizkor service, can help us live out the wise words attributed to King Solomon, Ki azah kamavet ahava, love is as strong as death. Perhaps love is even stronger.